It's the Teller Drawer. Real talk, real money, real people.
Credit unions were started by communities.
The standpoint of just being a credit union, it's kind of our job to go beyond.
Listening to the community. What are the needs?
CSE can come in and they can do financial literacy.
They're going to get that balance. They're going to get that purchase amount.
If you reach out to us, we'll help you.
The big myth is that it's always banks beat credit union.
It takes a lot of A's to get to a D, to get to a B.
Welcome back, everybody, to our viewers, to our listeners, to everybody out here. We are so excited to be back with another great episode. I'm Lucas Tyndale here with my great friend, Tim. We are here talking about the great things with CSE and this wonderful credit union. And we have some wonderful guests here again today. Tim, I don't know how you have so many friends, but I wish I had as many as you do. But at least you keep bringing them and introducing them to me. And now I get new friends. And then today, your friends today, they have like matching names or something. I don't know what this is about. I don't know if they're sisters or twins or not, but they seem to be somewhat familiar, even if they're not family. I'm excited to meet them. Who have you brought with us
absolutely.
today?
So we have brought our elder statesmen, if you will.
Yes.
I'm only half kidding, but these are seriously two of CSE's longest tenured employees. They are the two longest tenured employees.
Wonderful.
Have been around for a while. I'm not going to put numbers out there, but we got Mary Loomis to my left and Maryann Sturia to your right. Mm-hmm. Maryann is our, I don't even know what you are, AVP of branch operations, I think.
Administration.
All right.
And then Mary, you are kind of a little bit all things lending.
Yes.
A little bit everything. So
yes.
She's the lady to get to know. All right, I'm going to get to know her today.
Absolutely.
Said, I need to do stuff around here. So she'll lend me some stuff.
So we're really not sure where this episode is going to go.
All right.
We brought these two because one, Maryann is the world's greatest or second greatest storyteller. Anybody that is in a room with Maryann just wants to listen to Maryann tell stories.
Okay.
At least anybody at the credit union or anybody that I know that knows Maryann. And Mary Loomis, I always want to say Mary Ray because for years she was Mary Ray and now she's not Mary Ray. But everybody always called her Mary Ray. So Mary Loomis just is the sweetest lady you will meet. So we got a sweet and we got a funny and we got whatever we are. And
okay, right.
I'm just somewhere
on the outskirts.
We're going to see where this goes.
All right.
Tell some stories.
That sounds
talk
fun.
about what the credit union used to be back in the day and where we're headed. And so I figured
I like podcasts like
bring them
that.
along.
I listen to a lot of podcasts like that. They have some sweet, they have some funny, they have a mix, and it just goes where it goes. So I think that'll be fun today.
So yeah.
So we're gonna hear some stories.
Go.
Yeah. So what do you guys? So CSE. So here's what I know. Now I know you guys weren't there at McKinley High School in classroom 202. No, once upon a time you guys weren't there at the old McKinley High School. But I'd love to hear when you both started and kind of what you guys know about the history of it, because it's all of this has been so fascinating to me. So you guys can start there.
Well, I can tell you that I started with the credit union on 18th in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. They had been there about a year and a half. They remodeled a small building that used to be a restaurant. So I heard the stories about how it started at the school and a cigar box and things like that. When I started, there was only 7 employees. So
wow.
We had 3 or 4 teller windows, and we were still dealing with our original members at that time. That had started the credit union or the first generation.
Right.
So it's evolved into way more than what I ever thought I'd see in my time there.
It's amazing.
That's about what it was when I started.
Love that.
Yeah, mine is about the same. I started in 1983. So I was a part-time teller and still was in high school. Mm-hmm. So my accounting teacher was on the board of directors. And so when you didn't want to go to college, they'd help you get a job. Mm-hmm. So that's how I landed at the credit union. And same thing, 18th in Cleveland. It was the old Bean Pot restaurant made into a credit union. And I stayed at that office until I opened the first branch in North Canton in 1988.
North Canton was the first branch?
It was the first branch.
Where it is now?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That's my branch. Well, that's where I go. I live in North Canton.
And that was a restaurant also that we redid.
Was it really?
Yes.
Interesting. You guys got to think for restaurants. All right. Very good.
Yeah. I love food.
Yeah, I love food. Like that open up branches there.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
So when you guys started, we actually joked when we were kind of prepping for this episode, we joked about the computers or how you guys used to do stuff. So back... I feel bad saying back in the day. In the day, previously.
Right.
How did that work? How did transactions and stuff work for
So there was only one computer for all of the 4 tellers of us to use. So after we would stand and talk to the member at the counter, then we would write down, take all the information, what you wanted to do with your check. Then we'd go to the one computer and then enter it. And then we'd leave and the next teller would go and do their transaction.
It's like a revolving door of, okay, well, yeah, I'd
hope
love
this
to help
one
you.
computer
I have to
stays
go
alive.
to the back.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. But it also wasn't a computer like what we've got now.
No.
It was, I don't even know what they
It wasn't connected to an
called that, but-
It was
internet or
called-
anything.
yeah.
I'm
It was
guessing.
an old dinosaur.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Little
and
DOS system.
actually before that even, so we had a small office. It really wasn't an office. It was an oversized closet. There was a place in North Canton. It was called the Baker's Dozen Mall. And it had little shops in it. And the credit union wanted to serve North Canton without having to come all the way down to Canton. So funny as it is, on Friday afternoon around 2:00, I would load up my cash drawer in my car and drive up to North Canton. Meanwhile, the members were in line on the steps, and I would just say, "Hey, hi," walked in with my cash drawer, and we had a employee at the time. Her name was Barb Rex, and she worked there. And they'd wait till we got there, and I'd bring her money and throw my drawer in and help, and then drive with my cash drawer back to Canton. So that was even prior to,
the good old days.
Mary, yeah.
Right.
Safe.
No Brinks
Got in the
truck,
parking
nothing.
lot.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't matter. I had a blue little bag, and away we went. But we only had one computer there also to start. But we kind of just stood in line, and the members knew we could only do one at a time. So we, like Mary said, we wrote it, and we just kind of hang out, wait till they were done. And it was
People were a
one.
lot more patient back then, though.
Oh, boy.
yeah.
Talk to us about that. So were people a lot more patient back then?
Oh, yeah. And they all knew each other. So they would just talk in the lobby as they were standing there. Because when we first started, we were just open to the teachers, Malone College. So everybody just knew each other. And it was like just a gab fest in the lobby.
It was an extension of school. It was almost like they were. It's just they were coworkers and
Exactly.
just standing
Changing
around.
classes.
Yeah, it's
Like
Yep.
everybody got out of school at 3:00 and hey, we'll meet you at the
we
campus.
knew when the crowd was going to
Yes.
show up, and you knew everyone by name, and we still try to do that. But then they knew us, and they knew everything that was going on, and it really was
Just like
completely different.
like a
At
small
the time, there was only
small
a couple
family.
thousand members, right? So
Yes.
maybe 5,000-6,000.
Yeah, and it's so weird how you remember numbers, but one of our coworkers that was there forever, Dixie, she wrote direct deposit didn't really exist as we know it now.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to write, I remember there being like 365 of these papers that would be your name and your amount. And then in between us trying to wait on the members, she was posting direct deposits. And so at that time, we only had 300 and some, Canton City or Malone. And I think that might have been even before Stark State. That was a big thing with Stark State. I know when Mary opened North Canton, we could it stepped up in the world a little bit faster. But yeah, it was a lot. And everybody knew everybody at that point.
Interesting.
But let's talk about that. So we've talked before, and I don't know if it'll end up making a final episode, but direct deposit before direct deposit existed as we know it, where everything's electronic. CSE did that. And you guys, exactly like what you said, we had a courier run from Canton School or from Canton City Schools payroll department to the credit union
It was
and
called
say,
the Pony then.
there you
Yep.
go.
Really
Yeah.
was.
It was
Yeah,
called the
Like the
Pony.
Pony Express.
Yeah.
What are you talking
Express.
about?
Yeah.
And they would
Yeah.
come and bring us everything.
Stack of checks, and we would put them in manually then because it was just stacks of checks instead of all electronic.
How long did it take things to clear? Is it like, how did things go? Like, I mean, like if I put,
That is, the checks just took a good 5 to 10 days to clear, and now you know how fast they clear.
No,
Same
let me
day.
say
A
this.
day at times.
Yeah.
Listen, let me tell you something. I brought a check to CSE the other day, and they said, well, you haven't had a check from this company before, or I had one, but it wasn't that large of an amount.
Yes.
And it was a Friday, and they said, well, it won't clear until Tuesday. And I was kind of like, I wasn't in love with the idea,
Right.
because normally from this company, it was direct deposited or something, and whatever. For whatever reason, they sent me a check. And I was like, well, how much can you allow to be freed? And they said some small amount. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like $200. I'm like, it's like thousands of dollars. What is $200? And whatever. But I understand. I'm like, this is not this person's fault. I have to deal with it. I have no understanding of 5 days or whatever. How many days did you say?
Well, because they used to, if they would come in during the week, say on a Monday, and you did your deposit, the checks wouldn't go out until the next day. And we were actually holding checks and having to send out a deposit. It was so different. And so there was always a layover time it took for those to clear, not so much that the money in your account, because we did the deposit.
Okay.
What you're talking about now is more so when there's a check that our system doesn't see or maybe hasn't, our new account, there is a hold process, which everyone has. That's where that
was that similar? Was it just, how long was it? Was it a similar thing where they brought their school check, the school and their payroll, so that cleared fairly fast? So they did have access to their money pretty fast?
Well, they always had access to their money right then.
Okay.
It was just a matter of the actual draft clearing, through feds and things like that didn't affect the member.
Okay.
And every once in a while, we get a call and say, Mary's leaving for vacation and we okayed her to have her paycheck. So we'd go digging through 300 checks and find, that one and do it. But the members coming in always had access to their money.
Got it.
And there weren't the fraud and stolen checks and duplications and things.
Yeah.
That was not even on the radar at that point. It was
So things were more trust.
Right.
Trust things better.
So now, like with your check, under Reg CC, that's when we have to, the computer didn't recognize it at first. But just like with any member, they can always ask for a manager and see what we can do.
Sure. So there's ways around it. I think those are always things that I always find. I try to be the most understanding person on this side. I do ask questions.
We appreciate that.
Yes. I do ask questions because I want to understand, because I'm thinking, I know everybody else isn't going to be as understanding. And I'm not always as understanding because, I'm running a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't get direct deposits every other week. Right. So it's like this cash flow matters. I got to pay people. I got to pay stuff. I got to keep things rolling to keep my business going. So everything does matter. But I don't always understand. And I know there's people, sometimes I'm standing in line and the person in front of me is like having a fit. And I'm thinking, I know it's not the teller's fault. I'm like, it's not their fault. But for lack of education and information, you just take it out on the person in front of you.
Mm-hmm. And we try, that's the whole, I try to get all the tellers or anybody really that works for all of us. We're forming relationships with people from start to finish. So, if you come in first, no one knows who you are. We don't know who you are. We don't know anything about your business, things like that. And you come in with brand new checks. We also have to protect the credit union and the other members' money. But once you come in and we know your business, then we're like, we don't have any problem with them. These checks.
It's just Lucas.
It's just Lucas, right?
It's just Lucas.
Put
a 20-day hold on it.
I know. No. See how long you'll wait. See if he'll start acting up. What's get him on camera too.
We've always tried to go to that member when there's a problem and say, say for instance, Mary's doing what she's supposed to be doing. I'm going to make an exception for such and such. People just need to understand.
I wondered about that.
Always,
because I know. These are good things to understand. Because I wondered about that. Because I went and I think the supervisor was there and she recognized me one day and she said, "I'm not going to put a hold on this for whatever it was." And I'm not thinking one thing to the other because I'm just here with another check from another business for another thing because I'm a business owner and I'm just doing things or I'm doing business. And I didn't always understand that. So I think these are interesting and important conversations, even in a podcast setting like this for us to have because members don't know how these things work. And it's also interesting from you guys' perspective to understand how things evolve. And you guys can even say things before were even simpler. And I'm thinking things maybe now are faster because of technology. And you're saying, well, technology helps, but fraud is worse now.
Oh, it's just awful.
With every enhancement to technology or thing, as things have changed, there's more regulations, there's more rules, there's more everything that we have to abide by. And to your point, that's something that people don't know. Well, why can't I just have this? Well, because our regulator said we have to do it this way, right? Insurance says you have to do it this way. There's 99 out of 100 times there's reason that we're doing things the way that we're doing things. So
And we don't want the members to feel like coming in that we're trying to make things difficult. We don't want that. And there was no education of how banking and credit unions work and checks and the processes. So anytime, education is a big thing for CSE. And those are the types of things that are just not common knowledge that we think people understand, but they don't. So when a situation arises like that, we try to educate them each time so that they kind of understand and know that we can make exceptions for that. You're building a relationship with us. We want you to have your business. We don't want you to come in, and we understand that that people need their money. It's a completely different world now than what we were used to.
Interesting.
It really is. So as things have changed, what have been some of the most memorable moments, over the past couple of years that you guys have been there?
That's 3 or 4.
With members or at the
just
credit
in general,
union
what are some things
Yes.
that you look back on fondly, like, when this happened, it was great, or when that happened, it really changed things at the credit union?
Oh,
I know I'm putting you on the
There's
spot.
I know you
There's so
are.
many things.
Mhm.
Technology's always been a big thing. We always laughed with Mary and I
Yeah.
got married. We're like, we don't even know how we made it to the altar because we put in new computers.
We did.
So on one side, we're like, oh, yes, we don't have to share computers. But then we're
Yes.
like, oh, my God, wires were hanging out of the ceiling. And
Yes, we changed that.
we had to run
data
around the
processors.
counter at that point. We didn't even
Yeah.
just turn around. We had to literally go out with the members and come back around and say, hang on, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
But we never closed down.
Mm-mm. We worked through all of that.
Epoxy, awful things on, they were putting the counters in and things. And it's just, Mary and I both have gone, we had several CEOs and managers along the way. And each time, each one brought something different to the table. And just the things that we can do now that we couldn't do then. Helping people is the main thing. Mary and I we're 3 and 4 generations down. And to know that, I guess my biggest thing is when I have a member come back and say, hey, do you remember me? And we're pretty good about remembering people. And I'll like, tell me something. Well, I came in, I was having a terrible time. I was, I needed money and nobody wanted to help me. And you took your time and helped. And now I have a house, they'll stop you out and about. And there's been so many, I tease these guys all the time. I say, I'm definitely not an English major or anything like that, but I said I wouldn't write a book for all the things through the credit union. But above all, we have some really great employees, but being able to help the members is more than it's keeps you going every day. And they're so grateful. There's so many people that no one just wants to be bothered with. They just don't. And I think one of the most realistic things for us is that a lot of us just, we came from regular families. My dad worked at the city. Mary's dad, she had a huge family, and we didn't know we were missing anything. This was reality for us. And the thing now is kids know so much about what's going on. They come home, the lights aren't on. Meanwhile, the parents have been in there during the day, needing food. And it's a sad situation, but, we try to help everybody that we can, or maybe not today, but get them to that point. So to me, members appreciation and seeing them thrive is probably the most exciting thing for us, I would guess, for me anyway.
Yeah, I would agree. Lending has always been my passion. So that's the side of the credit union I mostly I'm on. I'm on like 3rd generation of family giving loans to them. So, and just like how we talked about check holds and things like that in education. So on the lending side, the education, we used to do credit score enhancements classes. And then the members would come and we had, the people train them and show them how to improve their scores. So, you're paying us a higher rate now, but if you do this, this, and this, we'll get you a lower rate, lower payment. So we did that for the longest time. And then Credit Karma came out. And now everybody knows how to do that on their own through, Credit Karma, the internet, all of that.
Yeah.
So, that's another thing that has evolved.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing is members would check their credit score on Credit Karma, and then they'd come to me, and I'm like, no, that's not your score with us.
What do you mean? It's
Yes. So
720.
exactly.
So talk to us about that. So that's a great point, because I've talked to people in real estate who talk about Zillow, for instance, and they're like, that's not exactly true. Like what they're seeing on Zillow may not be 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that some of what they may be seeing may not be the exact true score, and therefore there's more that underlies that? What are you saying there?
Yeah. So Credit Karma is, they take different types of the
Credit models.
Mm-hmm.
Then like everybody's different. Even the dealers, when they pull your credit score, they have like a dealer model that they'll pull.
Right.
So their rate's different, Credit Karma's rate's different, and then a financial institution.
Right.
So like yesterday I had a member and he says, well, Credit Karma says 645. Well, then the loan officer pulled it. He was a 731. So he was very ecstatic because he got
It's not always that, well, Credit Karma says I'm an 800.
Yeah.
Well, we see that you're a 600. Sometimes it's
the other way around.
Yeah, right, where you're actually much better off.
Right.
Went from a 7.99 interest rate to 5.49.
Wow.
So that makes a huge difference in their payments. So
That's fascinating.
yeah, but back in the day, we would teach that. But now that technology is involved, now they're teaching it.
Much more stuff's out there.
But are they teaching it right, though? This is an interesting question.
That's a fair picture. I don't know that in some cases, I don't know that Credit Karma is wrong.
No.
I just don't think they paint a complete picture all the time.
Okay.
Right.
So there's 3 different credit bureaus out
Right.
there: TransUnion, Equifax, Experian,
Right.
and there's 2 or 3. Well, actually more than that, but there's 2 main models of credit reporting. So there's a FICO score and then there's a Vantage score. But to Mary's point, if you're in an auto dealer, they use what's called an auto enhanced score. So yeah, you might be a 700, but you always pay your auto loans. So this auto enhanced score says, well, for auto lending, you're more like a 750 because you always pay your car loans. You don't pay your credit cards. But
Right.
but it's not painting the full picture. So
Yeah.
so there's a lot that goes into that. We can get into that some other time.
A lot of it's just education in general.
Right.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I think even from the very beginning, Mary's, like she said, she's always been in lending. I've done just about everything there, but accounting, they're not let me do that. But like it anyway. But we still have members that'll come in that, maybe they're snowbirds in Florida, but they have our numbers. Some of them have our cell phone numbers. And they're calling in, I will only speak to Mary. And they'll say, Mary McDonald. Well, that's when Mary was in high school.
Yeah.
And
When I first
know who she
started.
is. Or they'll call and say, and they're like, we don't have anybody here by that name.
Yeah.
No, she did all my loans. And, you look
I
back.
know
and
she's
of course,
still there.
Yeah.
She's still there. I know she is. And they would talk to us. And I think that's a big thing for us too, is we always take the time. I will never not talk to someone. Sometimes it's hard because we're in meetings or things, but we always at least make the initial contact with them because these people are coming back. They remember you. We've made them comfortable. We've taken care of them sometimes in the worst times of their life. And, we've always said, if you treat people with respect, in the bad times, they'll always choose you first in the good times.
I love that.
So we've had so much of that. And the amount of help, I really don't know what a lot of people in Stark County would have done without CSE.
Yeah.
We have,
especially during COVID.
oh my gosh, during
Really?
COVID.
What was
Yeah.
that? What do you mean? What happened?
Well, so a lot of places, the jobs, they, weren't working anymore because the restaurants closed down, things like that. And our CEO at that time, he really stepped up and he helped them with deferments on their payments, things
The
like
businesses or people?
the members themselves.
Oh, just members.
So like if they lost their job and they'd call in and say, well, I can't make my car payment now. What am I going to do? So, the restaurant that I worked at closed down.
Yeah.
So, and then even our local dealerships, the mom and pop dealerships around town, they reached out afterwards and told him to, if it wasn't for CSE, I don't know how we would have survived, selling cars.
That's amazing.
So yeah, he really stepped up CSE to the plate for
People
that.
don't know these things.
No, and then
That's
on the human
amazing.
side
Love
of that, we never closed.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
We did
We-
close the lobbies for a couple weeks. However, we met every morning, a group of us, and like when you're talking about the car dealers and things, we thought, what are we going to do when we close these doors? Because especially at the Canton office, there were so many members that rode the bus or walked there. So we looked out one day and we're like, oh no, this isn't going to work. We had members standing in line behind cars. Exhausts are going because, you know,
they were going to walk
they
through
were
the teller, through the outside.
drive-through.
through there. We had extra police on duty to help with the traffic, and you know, cars were wrapped around the building, and we're like, we can't do this. There's just no way. So
Yeah, I think our
We-
lobbies were closed, a week, maybe
not
two?
Right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was only. I mean, it was really bad then. And the credit union not only took care of the members, took care of the staff. You know, we tried to give people a break. It was very different for all of us. We never worked from home.
Okay.
So through COVID, anyway, we had so many people outside, and you know, we used to open the doors at Canton, and I was at that office for when Mary and I both were there for a good while. We'd have members lined up down the sidewalk. I mean, down the sidewalk.
Yeah, if
from
you're
our
familiar with the
buildings.
Canton office, from
to
the front
Market.
door to Market
Canton
Avenue,
is
which is
Market
That's
office.
the main one.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and you know, the building sits off
Yes.
the road pretty good. But we'd have people lined up. There's been times when it was frigid cold. We opened up the middle doors for people to come in. We offered a loan one time, and we had over 200 people walk in at the first time. We got every chair we possibly could find in the credit union, and we sort of act like a deli counter, gave everybody a number
Right.
and took them as we could, you know. And there were just so many times, and real quick, when we talked about helping people and memories, and I always tell this wherever I'm at. I was in Vegas one time for something for the credit union. I told them over the years I've done so many things, but our biggest reward was during this loan we had. It was late in the day. Everybody was pretty tired and had just gone through it, and I did a loan for a man that was homeless. And he came in and, you know, was kind of gruffy looking, and everybody was just had it. Everybody was mentally drained from that day. And he came in and I said, I'll take him. So he came in and he said, I don't know why I'm here. You're not going to help me. And I said, well, you know, let me see what we can do. Long story short, his wife they were homeless. Their pastor was allowing them to sleep on a couch in their basement. And he sort of had a small house that was attached. And the bottom line was, if they could come up with $500, this was before Thanksgiving, they would let them rent this property. So as talking to him, he worked for a factory for many years in Alliance, and he had gone through all of his retirement because his wife was sick. So, but he was getting Social Security, and I said, well, how about this and that? So I walked away, and I thought, you know, there's no way I'm telling this guy no. There's no way I'll find a way. And that's kind of what we thought of. So we did. And I came back, and, you know, I have this grown man in front of me, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this loan. And, you know, tears are streaming down. He goes, are you serious? And I said, yeah. And he said, why? And I said, well, I believe you'll pay us. I believe you'll pay me. This is what we're going to do. And he said to me, you know, after I had to walk away, because then he's falling apart. And he actually ended up paying that loan off early. They moved into there, and he said, I'm going to go home and tell my wife we can have Thanksgiving with their kids, because they couldn't afford, you know, the stuff for dinner. So by far in all my years, I have to say I will never forget that day. So that's what we're about.
I've heard you tell that story at least 2 or 3 other times.
Wow.
And I think all of that goes to what we're trying to accomplish with this podcast, telling the story of what we do, why we do it. We're all about those relationships. And in some cases, we help people that we don't have those relationships with, but that's the start of it. And to your point, people never forget that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They helped me when I was at my worst, darkest hour. And we've got members for life at that point. But through the years, we've built relationships. You guys have done an outstanding job, the two of you, in doing that. And that's probably why you've been with CSE for so long. But what can you say, being in the credit union, not even just the industry, but at CSE for the number of years you got, what have you seen with people? Like, what has that taught you about people?
Well, I think as long as you respect them, like Maryann said earlier, and you talk to them you don't interrogate them, but you just have a conversation with them and find out the full story. Like that's then how we can help you. So, we just really talk to them instead of like being a loan processor. We interview them, we have a conversation, and then try to find a solution for them.
That's an ongoing solution. And sometimes, you have to walk a fine line because you don't want people to think you're trying to infringe on or, embarrass them or anything like that.
Right.
Mary's nice and sweet. I've worked on both sides. So sometimes I'll be like, look, I'm going to give you this, but I could find you.
That right?
So you better, don't make me look bad. And,
Right.
we've had people come back and be like, I was afraid of her. And I'm not a mean person.
Right.
But it's like,
I don't know.
yeah. But they're back. They come back. And
So that's funny that Maryann brought that up because I, during one period of time, the loan officers and the lending manager, which I was, we had to help the collection department and call members, and talk to them. Well, they'd give me the sob story and I'm like, oh, okay, let me see if I can defer your payment.
Let me grab a couple dollars.
we took her off the phone.
Yeah, I'm like, where's my wallet at? It'll be okay.
Like, I'll
Don't laugh. We've done that. We've done that.
Wow,
We've collected
really?
food
Oh, yes.
for different reasons, book bags, and we always keep. I still, I'm not now, but I kept boxes of food in my office, and we've had people or Mary would come over and be like, "Do you have anything extra over there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" We had a family that had 4 little boys or 3 or 4 little boys, and they couldn't get their school supplies, and they were doing well. We all were like, "They'll have theirs tomorrow." And our staff is
Has
very
always been
giving.
so generous. Yeah.
Our staff is very generous.
And all the crazy stuff that goes on in the world and all the terrible and all the negativity, when you go in those walls and you really see people that really want to help people. There's a lot of good people in the world, and CSE is lucky. And a lot of that is because our CEOs have allowed us to do that, have taught us how to do that. Our CEO now, every day reminds us, the members come first. The members come first. Our CEO prior used to say, do what you need to do and beg for forgiveness after the fact, but
Right.
take care of who's in front of you.
Right.
And we've learned that. That's what's kind of formed us as adults, and with our kids, it's what we learned working with. There's always people that are in a worse situation.
This is mind blowing to me. I just want you guys to know. My life goal, and starting already, and I've been like this since I had my first job, is I'm a giver, and I love to give and donate, whether it was, to church or whether it was to people in need, or if somebody calls me or says somebody needs something, I'm always like, what do they need? Or so a friend of mine reached out one day and said her electric bill was behind and she needed $300. And I was like, okay, do you know anybody who can help? And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe HEAP, maybe. I started going through the things. But I was like, in the meantime, like, what's your Cash App? And I sent like $100. Like, well, that's a third of the way there, and that's what I was thinking. And then I started trying to figure out resources. But my lifelong goal, all that I do here and everything, is to obtain a level of wealth that I can spend my life giving my time, talent, and treasure away. That's all I want to do.
That's
is
beautiful.
Be a philanthropist. That's it. Because I was the child who didn't have it. And I had community Christmas, and people gave to me and my family. And I don't know who these people were. And I don't know how they were in a position to adopt a family. I was like, what does that mean? They adopted, my mother got a gift and we got gifts. And I was like, always amazed at that. So for the rest of my life, I kept thinking I have to be the person on the other side of this. So I've spent my life trying to be on the other side of this. And even as a 17-year-old, when I got my first job and I was making $5.50 an hour, I was giving because I was like, well, I got something, so I can give something. And even now I had a friend who came here yesterday who's starting a podcast, and he said, do you have any extra things? And I was like, I got some old lights. I have an old camera I used to use. I have stuff, sure. And I gave him everything I had that I don't need just to give something. So to know that you guys are thinking about the people who come in as people. It's not just a credit score. It's not just another number. It's not just another possible way to make interest and make money. They're a good person who I can make money. They're a transaction in so many other institutions. You're credit worthy. Therefore, if I lend you money, I'll make money off of you. That's what I think of when I think of banking. I think they're looking for people who they can make money off of. It makes sense. You need it now, and I'm going to make money off of it later. That's the transaction. I never think of an institution thinking of me as a person saying, how could I help them? And to hear you guys tell these stories is just heartwarming and amazing and aligns with who I am as a person and just further pulls me into all that you guys are and all that you guys do. So this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, to your point, we certainly need to make money to continue to do what we do and to keep lights on, to pay employees and all that stuff. But that is never priority number one. Priority number one, like Maryann said, taking care of people and taking care of the person in front of you. We'll laugh with you. We'll cry with you. We'll grow with you. To Mary's point, third generation of lending. I mean, that's just incredible. So that's what we do. That's what we're all about. And
those things will
it's
come.
what makes us different. We're kind of the old school mom and pop family financial institution. So that's what we're trying to do. And that's the mission.
And our members are very loyal too. You know, we start them out with credit, get them established. They build their score. So now they can go anywhere and get a loan, go to the dealer and get the car loan. And, you know, I still have members say, no, CSE, I'm going there. That's my credit union.
That's what I did. And the bank and the car dealer kept trying to talk me into their loan. But no. I said, no, I have a loan. I came in with as though I'm a cash buyer. I have my money. Well, no, we can get you into something better and get you. I said, no, I know why you want to do that because you got all your deals worked out with your people to get whatever you get. I was like, no, I'm good. But they tried it. And, yeah.
Oh, well, then you know firsthand.
Yeah, you try it.
We have bank employees that'll come and say, I work at, you know, wherever, Huntington or whatever it might have been. And they can't help me, so I know you guys can and will. And I mean, we've had presidents and VPs and banks. It's not just the tellers that come in, and I don't like that. I should say hate. Don't say hate. I despise that word teller because I don't know that tellers exist anymore. We
they
have to
do
find
so much.
They do so much. I always
tell us about the history of that. What does that mean? What was a teller before? What did that mean? What do you mean now?
When I say teller, I think of like an old man in a skinny mustache
pulling out from your drawer.
You're just cashing the check.
It's
They're
not
problem solvers.
Yeah.
They really are.
The credit union, they're first impression people. You know, I tell them that if we're interviewing someone new,
they are the front lines.
They are.
You can train anyone to run a calculator. You can just you can not always train common sense, empathy, compassion. You know, listen to people. That it's very simple. It's not brain science. We had a friend of ours. He got to be a very good friend of mine, but a loan consultant we dealt with, and he became probably a billionaire, a millionaire. I know for sure. And it was just basic. He didn't know anything more than anybody else. It was all his same words were, you need to talk to people. You need to talk to people and give them an opportunity. And they'll come and they'll come back. And like Mary said, they're very loyal. They're very loyal. And if they're not happy with something, they'll let you know too. And sometimes you just need to agree to disagree and say, but on a normal basis, we have some really great members that, you know, back in the day, they'd come in with, we have a older couple, they would come in with a pound box of chocolate. Well, when there were 6 of us,
it's different now. We're way over the 100.
You're going to go buy out Hagen.
We really like to bring this again. We're like, we don't, you know, you brought enough candy over the years. We still, but we tell everybody that we love those girls at the credit union, you know? So it really has been, it affects your life outside of the credit union. I also grew up like that. Much better giver than a receiver. You know, you volunteer and give to a fault. Our staff is phenomenal with that and giving and wanting to help other families and stuff like that. So
it's amazing.
And back real fast about the tellers. So back in the day, that's all we did, cash checks, make the loan payments, things like that. But now, you know, I have a problem with my debit card and I have a problem with this or that. The tellers need to know all of that. So they are a wealth of knowledge. And like Tim said, they're on the front line. So when the member is upset, you know, they tend to be louder. And so we always try to explain to the tellers, they're not upset with you. That is their money. They're upset about the situation.
They're fearful. There are a lot of emotions going on.
Exactly. So we tell them, you know, take a step back, just listen, and then communicate. And it just really is helpful.
It resonates. And then they kind of think about that. So as well as the members, you get enjoyment or satisfaction with seeing a new employee that you brought in that like the light clicks on and they're like, wow. Because they've either come from another place that would be like, no, we don't care if their lights are on or not, versus, wow, you mean you really would do a loan for that? Yeah, we will. And the tellers themselves are very passionate also. So if they, send someone over to talk about a loan and for whatever reason can't, they're like, well, why couldn't you? Because we sent them over there. Why couldn't you know? Did you really look? And so they challenge you. I mean, and that's a good thing.
I like that.
That's a good thing.
Wow.
Because we count on them and they're just, there's been times when they were shorthanded or something, and Mary and I will come out with like, we can run a window. Then we're like, oh, I don't know if we can.
Oh, all the new tech. The next,
We can cash. We can count money.
Yeah, we can,
but don't ask us to do much.
the new technology is
debit cards and stuff.
Oh yeah, don't forget that.
Yeah, no. We know a little about a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
just to fill our way through.
Right. I'm not afraid to say that.
Right.
But yeah, we I can't imagine. I only worked one other place my entire life for about 6 weeks ordering medical supplies for a friend's company. So I came there to stuff envelopes and here I am.
Wow.
43 almost years
Wow.
later. So my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and now I'm in my 60s. There.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah, wow.
No, that's beautiful. I love it. I'm glad you said it. Tim wouldn't say it.
I wasn't going to go there.
You know what?
Thank you for saying that. That's
I was
beautiful.
17 years old and I'm 60 years old now. So
That's
I stayed there
amazing.
because I wanted to stay there.
That's beautiful.
I had opportunities to leave.
We've been
work
trying to
time.
figure out how to get rid of her.
That was it.
I told him when I started rocking and slobbering, it's time to
That's
get
the
out.
day. Just
I'm
that
going to
day.
go on my terms.
Okay, right. Give her a loan. She won't pay it back.
Yeah, exactly.
I have $1 million and I'm going to go. Mary's soft. She can't get me.
Yeah, exactly. I can't track her down.
No.
Right.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate your time, the stories. I look forward to making more memories through the years. And this is what we're all about. This is what we do.
Absolutely. We hope that your legacy continues and that there's others who come after you and stay 40 plus years and continue to carry on that spirit in this community of caring and sharing and giving back and doing what's right by the members and by this community. So thank you guys so much for your service. And thank you so much, Tim. And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. We'll see you guys next time on our next episode. We bring more great guests, more great friends of Tim's back to hear more great information about CSE. Well, thank you guys. See you guys next time.